The last time that I walked out of jail, I was 45 years old. I had been using opiates for about 11 years. I was absolutely convinced that I was never going to use again. I was never going to use. I was never going to go back to jail. I was never going to hurt my family. And again, I tried to do it on my own, and that never worked for me. So what that led to was for the next 9 months, I used, and I got to the point where I was homeless. I had pushed everybody away from me, except for the people that were doing the same things that I was doing. And Labor Day of 2007, I had been using for 9 months. I wanted to die. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go, but I knew that I had to do something. So I called a former counselor and said to her, I need help. And she got me a bed in a treatment center. I was supposed to report the morning of September the 6th. When I came to that morning, I was so full of fear. I was afraid of failure because I had failed so many times before. And I was also afraid of success because if I succeeded, even for a small amount of time, and then I failed, in my head, I was still a failure. So being trapped in that fear on that last morning, my solution was easy. My final decision in active addiction was suicide. By 7 a.m. that morning, the people that were in that room with me were reviving me. I was just touched that day when I walked into rehab that I knew quickly within 3 days I was willing to do whatever it took to never go back to using drugs. And I've continued to do that for the last 11 years. I've not found it necessary to use drugs or alcohol since September 6, 2007. I find it very important to share my story publicly. People need to hear that we can recover from our addictions. I was an addict for 33 years, which meant that I started when I was 13 years old. Through that time, I was a teenage mom. I was a battered wife. I was a business owner. My business was successful. I owned a home. I raised not only my child, but I raised 2 other children as well. For the first 20 years, I really didn't suffer any consequences. And then at about year 21, I tried opiates, and that was the beginning of the end for me. The last time I walked into a rehab, I had absolutely nothing. I had lost everything. I had lost my family, my business, my home. I was a 3-time convicted felon. My dignity, my own self-respect, all of that was gone. So I really started from the very bottom. I was 45, and 3 days later, I celebrated my 46th birthday. I had no idea what I was going to do with myself. I had a half a backpack of clothes and nowhere to go. Gratefully, I had a friend that was willing to take me in and let me sleep on her couch, and quickly I had to, not only did I have to learn to live without drugs and alcohol as my coping mechanism, I had to figure out what I was going to do with myself. I got my GED. I went into college because I wanted to be an alcohol and drug counselor, and I started my journey. If it hadn't been for other people supporting me, I don't know that I would have made it, because what I've come to find out is there's no way that you can overcome an addiction by yourself. I guess about 5 years into my own personal recovery, I saw a lapse for housing for women in my town. There was nothing in the town of Annapolis. So I decided to start doing recovery housing. The recovering addict, specifically women in the beginning, they didn't have anywhere to go after treatment. And if you don't give someone somewhere to go after treatment and you send them back into the same environment, I already knew from my own experience that they were at a high risk to relapse. I decided to start the houses, Serenity Sistas. I think I had about $983 in the bank, and that was it. Right before Christmas of 2011, I was shopping. I was shopping at Kmart, and I saw bed frames on sale for bunk beds. I was like, oh, I need those, and I'm going to put them on layaway. 3 weeks later, I got a very tearful phone call from my mom. She said, you're never going to believe what happened. Layaway Angels went in and paid off your bunk beds, which to me, it was a God shot. They paid the entire amount off. 3 weeks after that, I received an anonymous check for $3,000 with a letter that said, go out and buy your new mattresses and go out and buy your new sheets for your house because everybody deserves fresh linens and new mattresses when they start a new life. That was in 2012, and we now currently have 6 locations. Single women, single men, mothers and children's, and then I have a location that I use for crisis beds, people who seek treatment through our safe stations here in Anne Arundel County. They go there seeking help, but they're not going to get into treatment for 4 or 5 days. You just don't get in right away. So we house those people as well. So on any given day, we house up to 47 people that are entering recovery. And residents anywhere from 18 years old to 77 years old, that has been my oldest resident. Those individuals, they're just like me. They come in and they either have lost the life skills that we need to get by, or at 18 years old, they never had them in the first place. And they can be as simple as doing your laundry or parking correctly in the driveway. But then there's other things like resume writing. You know, if you don't have a good resume and you can't get that out there, then how will you get employed? And I think at the end of the day, that's all any of us really want. We just want to be happy, healthy, productive members of society. Often I go out and I try to educate the community. There are things that maybe they don't know or maybe they haven't thought about. And I have been told on a regular basis that addiction does not affect me. I don't know anybody that suffers from addiction. Why should I care? I mean, I've had people say that to me. And thank goodness I have gained a filter, because in the beginning it was I stated this a little differently, but we are all impacted by addiction. I personally went to either rehab or detox on public funds through medical assistance. So that increases everybody's insurance rates. It puts our taxes up. There are times that I wrecked cars and I was an uninsured motorist, which means your insurance went up, your insurance rates went up. Theft. That's how I made my living for a while, is I sold things from people, which today I'm certainly not proud of that. That also raises the cost of living. So if you are to say to me that you are not impacted by addiction, I'm sorry, but you are. You drive a car, you're out on the road, and there are people who are under the influence, whether it be from drugs or alcohol. You're at risk. So everybody is impacted by addiction. I got to hit my own personal rock bottom emotionally and physically. But with what's going on in our world today, people are not making it to rock bottom. They're dying, and they're dying young. So we have young parents that are dying. So there's a generation. And then they're leaving behind children that are severely impacted. I know families where the children in that family have lost both parents to the disease. It's a societal issue. If I were to ask one thing of anybody that can hear me right now, I would ask that you get to know somebody in recovery. Because the people that I know that are in recovery are some of the smartest, funniest, most hardworking people that I know. And I think that stems from, I know for me, that it stems from knowing that I took from my community for so long. I just want to give back. I want to balance the scales, if you will, and make that right. I'm Angel Traynor. and this is my story.